All right, so we are recording. Okay, so today on My Uncle's Escaped Alcatraz, we have another special guest, and it came to us via email. He contacted Ken, I guess like last week at some point,
Yeah.
and his name is Baptiste, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. Croissant?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, great. I didn't screw that up. Thank you. And then Baptiste reached out to Ken last week in regards to Frank Morris and said he had some interesting information about Frank Morris. But before we jump into that, Baptiste, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us, how you got kind of caught up in the whole Alcatraz story.
Yeah, exactly. So my name is Baptiste. I'm 27 and I've been following the case for nearly, I'll say, a decade. I was already very young. So 10 years ago, I was 17. I was catch up by all the documentaries, the books that I've been able to read. And I was like, yeah, a bit frustrated for some moment because Frank Morris is almost a blank page. So I wanted to go deeper, look with my own resources online. I'm not a citizen from the US, I'm from France. So I have to get in contact with people and, yeah, trying to legitimate my sources to find something interesting and true. And my first goal is to seek for the truth and have something nice to share.
That's great. That's great. Well, we kind of feel the same way about Frank Morris. There's, these gentlemen, Mike and Ken, have been obviously working on. Ken's been living this story, and Mike has been helping him research it for the book. So, Frank Morris is his background. They know a lot about his background, the time he spent in there. But yeah, you're right. There's just not as much information. Obviously, Ken's main interest obviously is with his uncles because he's related to them, and so he wanted to find out his family story. But to Ken, what was it like when you got this email from Baptiste?
Well, I found it very interesting, at first, because we know so little about Frank Morris. The only information that I've really kind of ever heard about Frank came from the U.S. Marshals or from the FBI files. And, very little is known about him, only because he didn't have any family. So that's what I always found it kind of interesting about Frank was the only thing we really have from him, like I said, is from the FBI files and little bits and snips that people have claimed to know about him. So I always find it very interesting when someone comes along and says, "Hey, I've got something about Frank Morris," because yeah, to me, I'm really kind of hoping that it backs up what we were able to discover about him.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Baptiste, let's dive in here. Tell us what you know about Frank Morris and your research, and based upon the email that Ken sent me, it sounded like you had some interesting information and that you had to check with sources and stuff like that. But what can you reveal to us?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to start with maybe adding a little bit of context to the situation. I read someone online about Frank Morris. I've been digging into different websites such as MyHeritage, Ancestry, and so on. And it's, yeah, very frustrating at the beginning because you don't find anything really concrete. So I have to go deeper. And I contacted someone with my actual sources, which I'm going to talk about a little bit after, and we spent like an hour on the phone on Visio, and he just tell me the story of Frank Morris as it is, and he ended up the call by reliving some compelling information and share me a specific picture of old Frank before he got sent to the hospice center to die. So yeah, that was very interesting. Of course, I was a bit skeptical at the beginning because this is not my story. This is the story of Frank and his family, and it's yeah. So I was very intrigued. I'm gonna say that. And if I can start by adding a little bit of summary to the podcast, I'll start with what we know about Frank's childhood, and the information that I have is the implication of the Morris family on a bigger scale during the Prohibition in the United States. So prohibition of alcohol was maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was between 1920 and 1933. And what I know is the Morris family was involved into contraband of alcohol in the U.S. What I've been told by my sources, by my contact, is that the Morris family, Frank's cousins and brothers, they were involved into carrying trucks and cars with alcohol inside through the Michigan and delivered to a specific point. And what I found surprising at the beginning, because the name Kennedy was quote a few times, excuse me, during my my call with my contact. So I found it very surprising at the beginning, because I'm not so familiar with the story of the U.S. I don't know if it was clear, like a direct collaboration with the Kennedy. It was a collaboration at least with Joseph Kennedy Sr. before alcohol was finally authorized in the US. And apparently, this is how he built before a part of his fortune. Yeah, this is the information that I have at the beginning. And I don't know if you're familiar with the name, you can tell me, of James Bud Morris.
Yes, I have actually heard the name Bud Morris.
Yeah. So this is apparently one of the most concrete contact with my sources. He passed away in, I think, in 2014, something like that. And my contact was directly in contact with him for a bit of time to realize like a documentary, a big interview with him. So every single information that I have are coming from James Bud Morris himself. And he claimed he was the cousin of Frank Morris. So I don't know if it's clear on your side. If you want me to of course go deeper in the conversation, what do you know, Ken, about James Bud Morris? Did you hear that name before?
Well, I've actually seen the documentary that you're referring to. Back when I was working with one of the U.S. Marshals, Art Roderick, they did some looking into Bud. They were never able to really tie or concrete put him as a relative of Frank Morris. I do know that he is the one who said that he personally went out to Alcatraz and helped pay off one of the guards in order to help facilitate the escape. That's never really kind of been corroborated with any of the guards. So yes, I have seen his testimony online. I think you can go out and Google it, and I know it's out on YouTube. I'm just not so sure. Now he never produced any photographs. Most of his testimony was just his word.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
if he showed you a photograph of Frank Morris and revealed where he was buried at or what nursing home he went to, that would be very interesting and more compelling information. Now, we have always suspected that Frank Morris left the country, left Mexico and Brazil. A lot of people believe he went back to Ireland or to Europe. So if we can nail down something like that, that would be huge for Frank Morris' story.
Okay, yeah. So we have the same information. What was released online by a guy called Hans Hartman was extract from this interview with James Bud Morris. And what I have in my possession is other videos who goes deeper into the topic. And I talk with that guy, the producer of the documentary miniseries in link with James Bud Morris. And I got the whole story. And indeed, he was teasing on some YouTube videos the full story. And it was maybe 10 years ago. And I think he didn't make it through. And I have something to say about this because I know you have a story to tell also with History channel, especially about Alcatraz, Search for the Truth. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was planned to release in more episodes, not only one.
Yeah, the History Channel was scheduled to do multiple
Mm-hmm.
episodes, have a season, and it was supposed to start off as a 2-hour documentary and then evolve into much more, but it never did. So, but yeah, it started off as a 2-hour documentary.
And my contact, which is Hans Hartman, had a story with History Channel, and at the same time, History Channel has a niche. They got scam or hoax somehow with Emily Earhart documentary. I don't know if you heard
Amelia
about that
Earhart, yeah.
story.
Yes, Amelia
Yeah.
Earhart.
Because I think it was a huge controversy because they released a very private picture from someone grandmothers and they have to cut all the documentaries. So they were very cold into releasing something who goes deeper into the past of someone. And that's what happened to my contact. He was planning to work with them on a full documentary in link with Frank Morris, but they cut all ties because of that story of Emily Hart. So yeah, that was a detail that I have to give you. Let me take my notes again so I can try to give you something maybe more concrete. Um,
You know, the one thing, Rob, that the only thing that we've ever really kind of been able, I myself and Mike have ever been able to uncover about Frank Morris, you know, when he left Alcatraz, you know, we kind of go back to the individual in Brazil who did say that when the three men showed up in Alcatraz in Brazil in the late 60s, early 70s, it was three American men, not two. So
yeah,
you would believe that all three were still together at that point. And then when Fred Breezy is meeting with the Anglin family in 1992, one of the members of the Anglin family, one of my aunts, asked about the third man, and he identified that there was a third American down there with them. He never revealed his name. All he said was, you know, there was a third American with them. I was never introduced to him, which undoubtedly, clearly, he did not want to mention his name because Fred Breezy is the one who flew them out of the country. So he knew who he was, but it's still he's still identifying him at that time in Brazil. So, you know, what happened to him after Brazil? You know, I've said this before. James Whitey Bulger just he never really kind of came out and said that he left Brazil. He just kept reminding me or telling me that Brazil was Portuguese and Frank Morris spoke Spanish. So almost kind of he was telling me that, you know, in some other words that Frank didn't stay there. He left. And I had actually heard that through other people saying they really believe that he left the country. So
yeah. So it makes me think of connecting what I told you last time on my email. In the information that I have in the full interview of James Bud Morris, it appears that indeed at some moments Frank Morris cut ties with your uncles and flew back to the US. He was living next to apparently in an EP oboe community next to the Golden Bridge, very close to Alcatraz. He let his beard grow for a bit of time. He got checked up with the police several days. And one day, and what the story doesn't tell is that he went back to join his wife and his two daughters. That's my contact told me. That's what my contact told me. He got married after Angola. He went to Angola, and then he had a bit of an affair. He built this marriage with his wife and had two daughters. And the version of that part of the family was Daddy was never Frank Morris. Daddy was just doing his services abroad with the army, and that's why he used this ID to come back to the U.S. and meet again with his family.
So, are you saying that he came back to the U.S.
Yeah.
under a different name?
Actually, if you want me to go deeper into the conversation, I can tell you what the big information that I have with Frank Morris. What I've been told is Frank is not his real name. Of course, he was using many other names, many aliases, but he's not born with the name of Frank Morris. He was using the middle name of Joe Frank Morris, which is one of James Budd's youngest brothers.
Interesting. You guys ever hear anything about this?
Well, in the FBI report, it does list a lot of the aliases that Frank Morris used over the years, one of them being Lyons.
Right.
And there was a, in the FBI report, it talks about meeting this woman. I think, what was her name? Catherine Lyons, I think. Mm-hmm. There was a woman that was associated with Frank Morris with the last name of Lyons, which was one of his aliases. But it was never determined if it was his actual wife.
Is there anything in there about him being married while he was in Angola?
Now, I will say that, it was Fred Breezy who said that when one of my aunts asked about Frank or the other man, he did say that he was with that other individual was with a blonde-headed woman. So sounded like either never said that who the woman was, but did say that he was with that other individual. So I don't know what this lady looks like, but there was a lady down there with him, according to Fred.
And maybe she wasn't Brazilian?
I'm not sure how many Brazilian ladies have blonde hair. So.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe someone who he reconnected with,
Right.
That's what it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't know a whole lot of blonde Brazilians either.
What I can say is that it might be very surprising, especially for you, Kenneth, but I've been told that Frank's real name is Clarence Morris, not Frank Morris. And indeed, he used Joe Frank Morris' middle name for his mischief and crimes and so and so. But apparently, his real name is Clarence Morris. And he's the son of Gwen Morris. That's what I've been told.
Is even told. Is there any kind of paperwork to back this up?
Indeed, I'm working a lot on having an official death certificate, and this death certificate is coming from Kern County in California, from the town of Bakersfield, and I'm working a lot to have the official paper with state of the real identity of Frank Clarence Morris.
Is that where, I can't remember, is that where Frank's from? Is he from that area?
It's from the old Morris family is from Rome, Georgia.
Rome, Georgia.
Between Athens and Rome, Georgia.
I will say this. We do have a document from the Department of Justice that is Frank Morris's birth information. He was born September 1st, 1926 in Washington, D.C. It says the father's name was Edward F. Morris. He was 36 years old at the time of Frank's birth, and the mother's name was Thelma Marie Phillips. Mm-hmm. According to this, and she was 17 years old, and the name of the boy was Frank Morris, and he was born at Gallagher Hospital in Washington, D.C. So that's pretty strong evidence that Frank Morris was Frank Morris.
Yeah, but I believe it too. What I don't understand is that James Budd is in his full interview is saying that indeed it was fake papers, and that the real story, and one of his uncle was indeed named Gwen Morris, and his son was Clarence Morris, who became with the Alcatraz fame Frank Morris.
I I mean, I can provide that document. I can send it to you. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Is there any way that,
I'm-
we can
you
see
know,
the photo that you're referring to of Frank Morris? Because I mean, we
Yeah.
have someone who can take that photo and do can analyze it facial recognition
Yeah,
with
of course.
other photos of Frank Morris, and we can tell you whether or not that's him or not.
Again, I'm not a professional in that case.
Right.
I've been told a lot of information. It was like maybe a 1 hour of a call. It was a big compact information. I have to go deeper into that, and that's why I told you to take time with me, because also I want to be sure that I can have all the documents to provide you.
If you could send that to Rob or to Mike or even myself, all three of us, we would love to look at it and definitely determine whether or not this is legit or not. So,
the other thing that Ken and I have are Frank's arrest records that was provided by the FBI, and the obviously a lot of the names is Frank Lee Morris and Frank Lyons were listed on his record. And then also Joseph A. McIntyre. And that's it. Those are the three names that he went by in multiple arrests over the years and incarceration by the authorities. So,
well, he used to go by one other name. According to Whitey Bulger, he used to call him Paco.
Well, that was a nickname that he gave him. But, if anybody would have his official legal documents, it would be, the authorities, the federal prison, when they would have access to all of his records. So I think you can make a very strong case that Frank Morris was Frank Morris, that it wasn't another name. Now, like I said, he did have aliases, and he could have had aliases that the authorities didn't know about. These were just the ones that they listed. But he was arrested multiple times over the years. So, and the names are repeated again and again and again. So
that's why I was curious also about that Frank Morris part of the story, and why would James Bud Morris, just 1 year before he died, give like such a big interview with possible revelation and then passed away? That's why, sometimes.
Yeah, well, I will say this. When we first did the documentary, we had a lady reach out to us from Washington State, and oh my gosh, she just like one right after another, and telling us that my two uncles, John and Clarence, were living out right beside her, were married, and she was sending us pictures, which clearly wasn't them. And she would just constantly harass us. And then the U.S. Marshals, I think it was Art at that time, went out and interviewed her and found out that, why she was doing what she was doing. I have no clue. I mean, she was clearly believing that was them for some reason, and was clearly telling everybody and telling the story, but it wasn't them. And so, some people do things like that. I don't know why. They want to interject themselves into the story. And I'm not saying that he's telling the truth and he's not telling the truth. All I'm just saying is that I saw the interview. I did speak with the U.S. Marshals, and they did talk to him, and they did not find his story credible.
What were some of the things? Did Art interview him?
I believe Art said that, I don't know if he interviewed him, but I do know Art told me that he was interviewed. Okay. Someone did go out and talk to him. And I think even Michael Esslinger said that, one of the things he did not believe about the story was the fact that he paid off a guard. I mean, there's been a lot of investigations into whether or not guards were paid off, and there was nothing to ever back this up. Even the deathbed confession story, talks about that they paid a guard off, and that was not ever corroborated in any way whatsoever.
And
in fact, Michael Esslinger totally disagrees with the fact that any guards were ever paid off.
Yeah, last week we had Amanda on, Amanda Williford from the archives at the Presidio, And after we did the interview, during the interview, she made mention of Charles German, who was the guard at the time of the escape, the one that was found culpable for the escape happening. They blamed him for it, and turns out he's still alive, or at least he was a year ago. And when the archives found out he was alive, she went out there and interviewed him last October, and I think he's like 93, 94 now, but she sent us the interview of Charles German. I'm sorry, Charles Herman. I'm calling him German. Charles Herman. And he goes into detail about the escape, the night of the escape, of what happened and what didn't happen, and what happened after the escape. That there was an investigation, of course. The FBI came, they shut down the prison, all the inmates, every single inmate was interviewed by the FBI, and of course the guards were interviewed. And when it was discovered that he did not complete his rounds properly, he didn't check the cells before he signed out that night. And one of the reasons that he gave was that they refused to let the guards have flashlights to check into the cells because the inmates would complain about, being woken up in the middle of the night for the bed checks. He said that he was suspended for 30 days without pay. And the guard who took over, because he signed out at midnight, and the guard who took over was also reprimanded as well. So after a thorough investigation by the FBI, where they were trying to get to the bottom of the escape and I'm sure one of the things that the FBI was wanting to know was, did they have inside help? Meaning, did the guards help them? Because that has happened before. We talked before about that recent escape with the two guys and the woman. She was one of the guards who helped them get out. And I'm sure there are many other examples of guards. Well, Whitey Bulger talks about, one of the guards when he was in Atlanta, gave them files to help them escape. There was no evidence, zero evidence of any guards being complicit in the escape whatsoever. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
I was just going to say that,
right. But it just means they didn't discover anything. Nobody said anything. There was no evidence to suggest that the FBI could discover that they aided the escape in any way.
I mean, the thing is, though, I mean, as you guys have illustrated in the book, and there was a lot of, let's just put incongruities with the FBI initial investigation and what they, sometimes turned a blind eye to. I mean, Officer Chechi, they were, they didn't believe him. And then when they started to believe him, they started implicating him. They wanted to implicate him in maybe he was involved. So and then the whole thing with the raft on Angel Island. And I mean, there's a lot of issues with that investigation during that time. So there may be some stuff that just, if they did find out, they didn't document it. They looked the other way. There was a lot of shit going on during that, as you guys illustrated very eloquently in your book, that not everything was done properly. So that would have been another huge embarrassment for the government if there was an insider who was helping them. And I hate to say it, I mean, when you have a situation where Mickey Cohen is getting let out on bond from the Supreme Court Justice of the United States, I mean, anything's possible.
Right.
Anything's possible. And the fact that Mickey Cohen was so powerful on the outside, you don't think he had any sort of tentacles on the inside? That to me just doesn't make sense.
Of course he did. Well, and two, I will just say this, as much as information that Whitey Bulger shared with us in those letters, he never once ever said anything about a guard helping in any way. And he was very forthcoming with all the details of the escape, what they were doing, what he supplied, what other people supplied. And with him telling me about the guard in Atlanta, I just cannot believe that he would not have come out and said, well, they actually had some help, from a guard in Alcatraz. I mean, yeah. But he never.
I agree with you that. But then again, on those type of situations, maybe he didn't know. Maybe that,
I would probably say that if he was not as involved with the escape as he was. I mean, he was very good friends with John Clarence, and he used to call Frank Morris Frankie. or Paco. So he was very close with those three individuals. And he knew things about the escape that he shouldn't have known. He was just a regular inmate that was right beside them or occasional friends out in the yard. So I just believe that when he started opening it up to me about the escape, he would have mentioned, especially how he mentioned the guard at Alcatraz. Atlanta.
Yeah.
He didn't have
No,
to
I
bring
agree.
that up, but he did. So if there was a guard involved in Alcatraz, I really believe he would have mentioned it.
That's what.
And the other thing that we just recently received as well was the FBI. One of the FBI investigators after the escape interviewed Alan West the day after the escape was discovered on June 13th, and we were given his notes and his initial report, which is the best information you're going to get. It was the day after the escape, so all the everything is fresh in people's minds. And Alan West only focused on everything that the four of them did in the preparation of the escape, how it started, what they did, and the aftermath of the escape, and his reasons for not going with the three and getting off the island while he was still there the next day. He goes into great detail about all those elements of the escape, and never once does he mention anything about any guards whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't bring it up at all. It was all within the confines of the four that planned and executed that escape. He mentions no outside help whatsoever.
Right. Another thing that it just kind of came to mind when you were talking about the guards. I do know that Bud individual, Bud Morris, in the interview, he did say that he went to Alcatraz to see Frank Morris, and he actually brought him or paid off a guard while he was out there. But there is no records whatsoever in the Alcatraz files that either of the three men ever had any visitors whatsoever.
Yeah. What he was saying
in fact,
too.
I'm pretty sure that there are no visitor logs
Baptiste,
whatsoever for them.
Baptiste, what do you know about this Frank Bud Morris? I mean, the Bud Morris guy. What do you have any paperwork on him? Did you do a deep dive on him?
I tried indeed to deep dive onto the family tree and to contact the most recent grandchildren from this family, because a lot of daughters from the original Morris family get married, and so on. And what's particular is that when I ask information about James Bud Morris, or even the existence of someone called Gwen or either Clarence, they don't want to talk about it. So I don't know if there is like a kind of embargo.
Who doesn't want to talk about it?
The grandchildren's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I found it also very weird at the beginning, because I came out by email or using those genealogy website, with just a positive way, in due respect, to talk with the family and just grab some info and share the truth. And the thing is that every time I'm sharing a picture, they can indeed confirm that this is James Bud Morris on the picture, but they don't even want to talk about Gwen or even Clarence Morris. And I found it very interesting, very intriguing, and that's why I started to go deeper into that topic, into that why nobody wants to talk to me about those people. If you can simply tell me that they don't exist, and that's okay for me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a little suspicious if they don't want to talk. But I mean, there's a lot of shame maybe around it. That's the only I can think of. People don't want to talk about.
What I can say, if I can add something, is that reveal in the family of indeed the existence of Clarence Morris put a lot of shame in the family, and I know a huge part of the family cut ties with each other. What I've been told is that Clarence was Clarence for everyone and for years, but one day when the daughters of Frank, Clarence Morris, knew the truth, they cut ties with him. They cut ties with all the family, because it was a nonsense. Nobody in the family was a criminal. So that's why I've been told before.
Yeah. What do we know anything about the Frank's this woman he had a kid with or kids with in when he was in Angola? Do we know anything? Did he was he in Angola?
He was in
He
Angola.
he was in Angola when he escaped, and that's what landed him in Atlanta. And then from Atlanta, he wound up going to Alcatraz. But now I don't know whether I think he was involved or in an attempt in Atlanta, and that's what sent him to Alcatraz. But you know, I have to kind of go back to the last U.S. Marshal that I dealt with, Dykes, when he was looking for relatives of Frank Morris to do the DNA analysis on the bones. He was able to track down a distant relative. He never revealed who it was, but he never indicated any children that I'm aware of. Now,
Did he indicate what kind of distant relative? Was it like a cousin or?
I believe it had to do with the mother's side. I believe he was able to find someone who was related to Frank's mother, but not the father, because I still believe, according to what we've been told, there's not a 100% guarantee sure about who Frank Morris's father was, because you know, she young at that time had many acquaintances, and so they were not really sure about who the father was, but they did know who the mother was. So that's what I think Dykes did, was he went and did some research on her, found some relatives that was related to her, and that's where he went and tried to get the DNA from.
Didn't you correct me if I'm wrong? If Frank Morris's mother, she was didn't she come from a family of means? Didn't they have money?
Yeah, they were upper middle class.
Did they say where they made their money? Because does the rum running bootlegging type thing?
No, it didn't go into any detail about that. That it was, you know, kind of a nice upper middle class family, and she just sort of was a rebellious person and just kind of wanted to go out. And like Ken said, she was a young, carefree woman who had a lot of boyfriends and was with men. You know, when she would sort of come and go from Frank Morris's life, she was usually with some other guy, you know, kind of a thing. So, you know, and she named a father, and there was a lot of doubt about him being the father. So we're not 100% sure who the real father was, but she did name this man whose last name was Morris.
Got it.
We talk a little bit about a certain picture that I have,
Yes.
or I can share it to you.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
You should be able to share it right on here.
I can maybe share my screen if it is possible.
I think you should be able to. I'm trying to think.
Is there maybe any way to share the file directly in the chat? I'm not sure.
Well, if not, you know what you can do is you can email us, but tell us what the you can email the photograph and I can put it in. I can edit it in. Tell us what the photograph is.
It's wait, I can share my screen. It's gonna work. I think it's gonna work. Oh, let's go. Can you see my screen now?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. That's unfortunate. Okay, I'm gonna send you an email right away so I can.
Yeah, maybe
Just tell us what the I'll edit it in. Just tell us what the photograph is and describe it for us.
Yeah, I got a picture like a month ago, and it's basically like a very old man sit in a couch on a family reunion. The picture is focused on him. You know, it was cropped on the sides. He's wearing like a cowboy hat, and there is a zoom made on his. I think it was his left ear. So it's a bit of editing because you have the picture, and then right away after, you have a zoom on his ear. And the proof behind that, I mean, the clue was to prove that incident Frank Morris, because Frank had like a prominent piece of cartilage in his ear. So I can send that to you. It will be more clear.
Okay.
Well, we definitely have multiple shots of Frank Morris.
Yeah.
From prison photos, left and right. So you could definitely tell.
Yeah.
I just want to add another. I just
Send
want
you
to add
right
another
away
little,
again so we can. Yeah.
anyway, I just want to add another little detail about Frank Morris that we have in the book. So when he escaped Angola, he was with another guy named Earl Brancy, and they robbed a bank and they stole $6,100. And it says that they were with three women, and they had we quote it from a book, they had a fling. So Frank and this other guy were hanging out for about a month and a half during the escape before they were eventually caught with these three women. Doesn't identify who the women were, but Frank Morris did have daughters. It could have been one of these three women that he'd had this relationship with, possibly. It does open the door to that possibility when he was out between Angola and
Atlanta.
going back to Atlanta.
Yeah, interesting. I just searched his name on my phone,
I
and it has
just sent you the picture per email.
okay,
You can
cool,
check your mailbox. So
great. And it doesn't have. It just has his birth date, and it says that he's 98 years old. Which I thought was pretty funny. So, according to Google, he's still alive.
I'm not so sure Frank is still alive.
Yeah. So, Baptiste, what else? Anything else that really come to mind? I mean, the photograph. We'll take a look at it. We'll analyze it. We have a guy who we can send it to right away, and he can take a look at it and match it up with a bunch of stuff. If I don't recall or hearing anything about any kind of ear kind of deformities or kind of thing that he had. But I definitely think we could probably at least rule this stuff out. Trust me, we want information as much as possible. I mean, because we're hunting for Ken's uncles and their existence down in Brazil right now, and we're working with people doing that right now, and it's tough. It's a tough approach to do, because you put your hopes in to thinking that you have some information, and this information, we don't know if it's valid or not. We don't know. There's I mean, the Bakersfield connection, that's kind of interesting, and then the fact that the story, the James Bud Morris story. Now, was he the one who revealed the fact that Frank was living in San Francisco, a bearded person? That to me, who told you that story, or where did you get that story from?
It's from an interview of James Bud Morris.
Okay, so it was a James Bud Morris interview.
Yeah. It's in the full version of James Bud Morris interview. What we have online is only extract from that guide we uploaded.
And is that like a YouTube documentary, or was that something?
It is.
It was teased to be and to be a YouTube documentary indeed. And it was planned to Alan Sartman was planning to work with History Channel when this happened, and they cut ties with him. Mm-hmm. Some more in link with the Emilia O'Hare talks. Was on the moment for History Channel to produce a documentary and put them into another country. Information are not correct.
Yeah, I know.
So
I mean,
the next step for me on my side is also, of course, I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm going to try to give her all the information that I have. I can share with you the pictures. I can share with you the death certificate if I have it anytime soon. I can share with you the private record of my call with that person. I don't know if you can try to dig into some kind of information, and I can also try to talk with these people online and link with the Morris family. But it's still weird for me that they don't want to talk about going.
It's pretty common. I mean, I get resistance on stuff like that all the time. I do a lot of true crime documentaries, and people just, they don't want to talk about it. They don't, I mean, it's a dark page in their history. And as some people, like me personally, I would be fascinated with that and kind of interested in that, as far as my family history. If I had some sort of connection to some historical situation, barring if it being something really, really bad, like if they, find out if you're, your grandson of Adolf Hitler. I mean, I don't know if I want that would be, that'd be one thing that'd be different, but,
I
for
agree.
some, but from something like this, to me, it's interesting, but you never know. You don't know how people take it. They don't know how maybe it affected their family, and so you never know. And so listen, I've had family members that we don't that in the past that I would go through photographs. I go, who's this person? I go, oh, we don't talk about that person. And they're like, why? It's just, we just don't talk about that person. So you don't know. And in all those secrets in family history, a lot of people don't want to talk about. Ken didn't start digging into his family's history until he was in his 50s.
Right.
He lived major portion of his life before he started really digging into it. And and then why, I can't remember. I asked you why you did that. What was the reason why it finally clicked in your head and says, oh, I got to look into this?
It was in the 2012 50th anniversary that we were out on the island, and we had one of the another person that was an author out on the island made some disparaging comments about John and Clarence, and
okay.
I just, it just kind of really grated on me, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna find out the truth. This is not what happened.
So this is all a spite book.
Oh yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Oh,
That's
yes.
hilarious.
Well, I'm curious, Baptiste, you talk about, Bud Morris being your primary source of information, and you're trying to get the daughters to cooperate, to tell their story. Do you have any other sources of information, other people you've talked to, other documents, other records that you've uncovered that either have corroborated or maybe might challenge some of the things that they've said?
Yeah, I actually sent you two links. This is the identity of my actual contact, the person I'm in contact with about Frank Morris, and this is the person I'm talking with every single week to grab information. I don't know if you can check in the chat.
So what is his connection to the story?
He was living very close to Rome, Georgia. This is where the Morris family on James Bud Morris side is living. So yeah, the connection one day with a friend was actually the daughter of James Bud Morris, and he was already in a very bad shape. He was like, yeah, my father have a story to tell before dying, and he passed away like maybe 1 year or two after. And himself, he was working into documentaries production, so he decided to get on track and produce that revelation documentary movie about the real identity of Frank Morris. So he's trying to get the interview, get the contact, start to talk with History Channel. And after that, it was, I think, like a blank page for him for so many years. He told me a lot of money on that project, a lot of contact, people from his family, his friends. Yeah. So I decided to reach him because I think this was the strongest leads that I have. And he's starting to reveal this information, including that picture that he sent me very recently.
When did he send you the picture?
Like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, does the death certificate, I would imagine it would say where Frank Morris is buried. Do you know that location?
Yeah. I got their certificate. With everything was highlighted in black, so I wasn't able to see. The only information that I was able to see through the lines is indeed the place of death, and it was in Kern County, California, close to Bakersfield.
Okay.
Now,
That's interesting. That's not too far from where I live.
Who sent you the death certificate?
The contact that I have. I sent you the link of his name, Hans Hartman. Hans Hartman. I'm gonna write it. For my pronunciation might be wrong.
Oh yeah. Actually, I have it right here. I see it on the screen.
Yeah. If you could check the two links, you can tell he was working on a documentary called AZ 1441, which is basically the matricle of Frank Morris when he was Alcatraz.
We have another rabbit hole to go down, guys.
Good. I was getting bored.
Oh, don't get bored.
Oh no. We haven't dug into some other items I want to talk about.
Yeah. No, but this is interesting. I mean, I love the James Bud Morris. I mean, I think I saw that thing on YouTube as well. I can't remember. I have to look at.
Yeah, he told me his full story. He started to work on that documentary 10 years ago with History Channel and blah blah blah. And
Yeah, I mean,
YouTube has the wrong way of communication to maybe tease people, but he didn't give enough information about Frank Morris to catch the interest of viewers.
Yeah, and then obviously what we know about the U.S. Marshal investigation and the gentleman you said that the agent that you said that interviewed this James Bud Morris. I mean, I'm just skeptical of anything that they tell you that would lead to any kind of information. I mean, because as far as Art's concerned, they died in the bay. So it's like if he did reveal something, do you honestly think that they would reveal it to us?
I think, yeah.
What do you think, Ken?
Well, to you first.
Well,
You're not me, not a random guy.
Yeah, I will say this. The U.S. Marshals keep stuff to themselves. They share very little. And I do have an update for all of our followers. I did speak to Art Roderick, and he is excited about coming back on in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good. Excellent.
So he wants to share his thoughts and opinions.
Oh, on the book?
Oh, that's nice.
On the book, and maybe some other items.
Okay.
That's a nice teasing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear his thoughts. I mean, because we're at this juncture now, is that we're on a cliff.
Yeah.
I'll
I'll share some stuff with you and Mike after we get done. About what he said. And
actually,
I don't want to include it right this minute.
I'm sorry. I had another question for Baptiste. Now, have you had a chance to read our book?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Here.
So as far
there you go.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So just I know there's way too much to cover in the few minutes we have left, but as far as the escape and after the escape, does that information generally corroborate what you found, or were there some strong differences?
I think the link of Frank Morris leaving the Anglin's brother made me believe a little bit my contacts, and the information were so precise. We talked maybe like for 50 minutes now, but I had like a 1 hour and a half call. So it was something very, very intense and compelling from Frank Morris' childhood till his death. And the picture and the death certificate and so, and maybe the occasion of seeing again the full interview of James Bud Morris make me believe like, yeah, this is something I want to believe. And because Frank Morris is almost a blank page, there is so many, I think there is a story to tell behind. There is obviously something to dig into it, to as you do in the book for the Anglin's brothers, share the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Baptiste, this has been interesting and thought provoking, and I would encourage you to continue to dig. Seems like I think you're because you don't know what you're going to find. I mean, we're digging pretty hard right now, and we got some professionals doing it, and you can't always believe everything you think is what you see and stuff like that. So you gotta verify.
Okay, I'm gonna share with you with an email right away after the picture again, the call that I have with my contacts.
Okay.
I think this is 45 minutes long. You can go and dig into it in full privacy. If it is full of bullshit, you just email me back. That'll be good.
Hey, listen, we're glad you're interested in this. We're glad that you've taken the time to really kind of dig in and investigate it, because that's the only way you're going to find out the truth. But yeah, thanks for coming on. And then
Thank you.
we'll check back with you from time to time. If something else comes up, please don't hesitate. And if we find more information, we'll reach out to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
of
was
course.
thinking,
And
if you find out anything, please keep the communication going, because we want to dig and find out what really happened, and you might possibly be able to fill in some holes that we haven't been able to find. We couldn't find a lot about Frank Morris.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have some news from my contact tonight, so I'll keep you updated, of course, if I can find this death certificate. So
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
okay.
Great. Nice meeting you. Stay
Thank
in
you for your
touch.
time.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Bye.